Hey, this is Tina Lorenz, your freelance copywriting mentor, mindset shifter, whoops, careful with that one, and transformational business coach and consultant, coming to you live from my office here at World Headquarters in Tucson, Arizona. And today we're going to talk about something very, very important. It's the most important skill aside from what you learn as a freelance copywriter. Now, let me just regroup here for a second. Sometimes when Facebook Live start like this, they kind of take you by surprise. But I've been teaching for a long time that freelance copywriting is the most important marketing skill you could ever learn, whether for yourself, whether you want to build your own business, whether you're writing for clients, whether you want to start a freelance business. Most important marketing skill, because it's the underpinnings for everything that happens with marketing, online, offline, all of these things. But there's another element that I want to talk about today. Last time we talked about funnels and marketing funnels and why that's such a valuable niche market to be able to learn about and to do freelance copywriting for. But there's another element that is supportive of all of this. And what I have found it to be is the most essential element, the most essential aspect of determining whether or not you can be successful, whatever you're doing, whether it's freelance copywriting or anything else. And you know what that is? It's mindset. It's your success mindset. It's how you think about what's possible for you and what you're able to do. And it really makes all the difference. I mean, that's it. Without it, you're going to find yourself doubting yourself. You're going to find yourself possibly giving up before you ever get started. You may find yourself keeping your fees very low, or doing things even unconsciously and subconsciously that actually pushes away the success, that actually repels it and stops it from coming to you. It's what I call, when I talk about mindset, I call this intentional thinking. And there's actually a science to this. That's what's so exciting about this. It's a brain science of neuroplasticity is something that's a real thing about our brains. And what that means is our brains are changeable and moldable, literally can change the pathways of how we think. And think of them as like little ruts. I mean, I have this sort of visual in my head of, it's not very scientific, but it's like digging a little trench, and that maybe you're staying stuck in that same old trench that you've been in for your entire life, part of the time without even realizing it. Because here's the thing. All of us are programmed from the time we're born, from the moment we come into the world, we're programmed with what we think and the information that comes into our brain. And so we use the word programming because it is kind of like a computer. Our brain's like a supercomputer, right? And so it's absorbing everything right from the beginning. Before we're even consciously able to think it, our brain is absorbing it as part of our world, part of our realm. And from that moment, everything you hear is absorbed. So think about, a brand new baby with a fresh little brain, and maybe the news is blaring away in the background with lots of negative things, or maybe someone's arguing, or just things that are going on around that you maybe your parents couldn't even control some of this, that what you might be hearing. And certainly, for most of us, our parents might not be aware of how impactful that was. But, I think awareness is raising about that. How many people talk into the belly of the pregnant mommy, right? Because you're already speaking to your baby, or you're playing music. And so at some level, that before even the baby's even born, so at some level, we're kind of aware that there's this thing happening, and that we're trying to support that in as positive a way as possible, right? But the fact of the matter is, for about the first 18 years of your life, you're basically being programmed about, the estimate is somewhere around 75 to 77% of that, quote, programming that's been coming in from the time we were a tiny baby is negative. It's negative, okay? Think about that for a minute. How many times between the time you're first born and maybe, let's just say 18, did we hear the words no? Stop that. No, you can't do that. No, don't touch that. No. Now, this isn't to blame anybody. This isn't to say that children shouldn't have limits or anything, but it's just a fact that that's what has happened to every single one of us, that we've absorbed this. And, most of our thinking is unconscious. We don't know every single thing. We couldn't sit here and identify every single thought that flies through our head all through the day, because there's probably 70 or 80,000 or more thoughts just constantly. And it's a really remarkable and amazing gift. Our brain really, truly is, and what it is capable of doing. The thing is, most of us go through life not really thinking that, making that connection that we can literally change something about how we think. We just think we think how we think, right? That's just who I am. That's just what I've always thought. That's just what I've always believed. And we're kind of right about that. But the other part is, though, that it can change, right? And so those programs that you might have gotten when you're 3 or 8 or 12 or something that happened along the way, those programs are still running. They're still affecting you, right? And I say that about all of us, every single one of us. Nobody is outside of this realm. As far as I know, I haven't ever met anyone that's so completely ascended that none of this touches them ever. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a learning and a flexing of that muscle, that mindset muscle. So, but here's the thing. The part of your brain where that's all being programmed actually does not know the difference between what's true and what is false. Your brain's not built like that. The inner workings of your brain, and I don't have all the scientific terminology of all the parts of the amygdala, and I do know reticular activating system, which is a very important aspect of this. It's a little part of your brain that's small but mighty. It's in your brain right about here, the base of your skull, at the bottom of your brain, so to speak. And that part of your brain, part of its job is to make sense out of everything. And so what you focus on, that part of your brain is saying, this is what is important to you. I almost think of it like it has a little personality. Raz, this little dude, little non-gender specific aspect, little friend of yours, and I refer to it as it could be your best friend or your worst enemy, because the job of this part of your brain is to make sense out of your world. And so what you are actually focusing on, it helps create more of that, because, got the message, that's what's important to you. That's where the focus is. I will help create more of that, whatever that thing is. A really kind of interesting aspect of this to me is that my husband, Ron, is legally blind. And so we sort of got this lesson early on before I understood some of these aspects about brain science, or began really getting really interested in this, because the way his brain works is it fills in the little bits that he sees, because they're like broken up. He has his very own unusual vision loss scenario, but his brain fills in the gaps between, there's a little something here, and a little something there, and a little something there. And so his brain automatically tries to make sense out of this broken up pattern and fill in the gaps. And because of that, he's fallen off of curbs. He's walked into plate glass windows in the mall, because his brain was saying, I see a little bit here, so I'm just going to fill it in and make a complete picture for you to make sense of this, even if it's not really like that. And so this is another example, very close to home, of your brain cannot distinguish what is true and what is false. It just doesn't. That's not its job. Its job is, though, to make sense and organize, right? So I hope that maybe that gives you kind of a little, okay, it's kind of like that, because we have had the experience in the sense of Ron actually hurting himself, because of what his brain thought was happening wasn't. Okay, so yeah, I know it's kind of brain bending, as we say. So, but here's the thing: your brain is designed to focus on the strongest belief, the strongest story that you're telling yourself, the thing it hears the most, the thing where there's things about repetition with this. That's what makes the difference, and that's where the belief comes in, because again, your brain's designed to act on the strongest one. Now, as much as 90%, what I was just saying about, as much as 90% of what we're thinking is unconscious. Ooh, kind of scary. As much as 90% is unconscious, but that's also how we do things like breathe and eat and not stab ourselves in the face with a fork, and not fall off of sidewalks if we have our vision, and things like that, because our brain these things are automatic of how we navigate, how we are mobile, all of those things. So everything, now I'm going to kind of go down this little twisty path here, so I hope that it'll make sense to you, but everything you believe, you think. You're thinking it, and then you believe it. And so your belief can manifest either way. I have a couple of notes for myself I'm glancing at, because I really want to keep this on a path that you can understand. So the belief can be one of two things: doubt or faith. Yes or no, towards or away. It's a decision also that you're going to choose, But your belief can be either one is belief. You can believe that you're going to fail. You can believe that you're never going to make it. You can believe that you're not smart enough. You can believe that you're too old. You can believe that you don't live in the right part of the country. All of those things. Doubt is believing in the outcome that you do not desire, but you believe in it. So that's what doubt is. Faith is believing in the outcome you do desire. You're trusting in that. You're focusing on that. And so it can be either way. Your belief can be either way. Guess what? It doesn't cost you anything to start working with what you choose to believe about yourself, about what's possible, about what you can do in your business, about how you can, what path you can take your life on. This doesn't cost anything to start thinking differently. That's what this really comes down to. Because everything you think and say or write, in our case especially, for those of us that are freelance copywriters, it reinforces what your belief is. Got that? Everything you think and say or do is constantly reinforcing what you believe. Because here's the gift of our brain, and what I think is the divine source of our brain. Personal opinion, my belief, okay, is that our brains are created this way. We were created this way. And so the beautiful aspect of this is the neuroplasticity of our brain. It's almost like, I think like Play-Doh. I kind of imagine it like that, like squeezy, And actually, I don't have it sitting right here. I have a little squeezy brain that I keep by my desk. I've moved it, but it's very squeezy. And it says, what does it say on it? Oh, I can't remember. It's something about making money from what you think, kind of a thing. But anyway, I usually have my little brain right here that I can squeeze. So that neuroplasticity, what that means is that your brain is designed to constantly rewire itself and update and upgrade and reboot and recalibrate all through your life. It's designed to do that for you. This is super exciting. It's the good news, really, with all of this, because that means you can change. It means you can change, because a lot of the things that you think that are a negative, and I'll give you some examples, they're habits. They're habits of thought. It's not because it's true or not true. It's because it's a habit of thought, and your brain isn't saying, well, okay, let me decide that for you, Tina. That's true and that isn't. Its job is just to say, this is what is. This is what Tina focuses on. This is what John focuses on. This is what Ron focuses on. Your brain is very much noticing that and delivering what you are thinking about, right? So that means this neuroplasticity. The good news of this is that you can change your, what I call old stories. When you hear me talking about your old stories, these are stories we tell ourselves. These are the stories we've been telling ourselves all through our life that we have claimed as our truth, right? So the question is, do those old stories serve you or not? Do they take you towards what you want, or do they pull you back and stop you? Do they continue to create something amazing in your life? Or do they continue to create the same old stuff? Because it's what you've always claimed as your truth and your belief and your reality, and possibly have not known how you could start changing that. We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you some examples. Because you can replace those old stories with new ones. And especially if you're here because you enjoy writing, and freelance copywriting is something of interest to you, and you just love words, this is good news also, because you can literally rewrite your story, right? Rewrite them. You can write them down, literally you can physically write them, or you can just start thinking them differently. One of the things I remember, I have lots of gaps in my growing up, because I learned as an adult that one of the things I did to protect myself is I disassociated from some of the things that were going on. This is another interesting thing about the brain, I think, because I didn't realize until I was an adult, not that long ago either, that not everybody remembers things as if they were up in the corner of the room observing them, right? And my sort of visual thinking, eventually, I realized that was not how most people memories played out, as if you're a visual thinker. And for me, that was like my perspective was from someplace outside of myself. I didn't realize that was a protective device until I was an adult, right? But one of the things that I loved doing as a child is I liked making up stories. I would talk them. I'd walk around the yard talking to myself. I was that crazy kid out there talking to herself, because I created my own little alternative world of the way I would like to imagine it. And so I would tell the story and I would say it aloud. and I love to read. And I read Gone with the Wind in one day. Can you believe that? When I was like 12. And because I just loved the stories. I loved going there. I loved just inhabiting that world. And so this has been kind of a fun journey for me to realize that some of that early love and attraction to words is what actually has become my life work. And so maybe you'll experience something that like that too, or maybe you already have that these things, the very positive things about your life and things that you held on to as something that was a happy moment or joyful thing for you, becomes what you do in your work. And so this is also a part of that making money by being you kind of a thing, and just understanding um, how to direct that. How to direct that, because we're not all going to be best-selling authors that make the zillions of dollars and have movies made out of your books and all that. But freelance copywriting is, I would say, the highest paid form of freelance writing is freelance copywriting. And I talked about this on the earlier broadcast that I did when we were talking about the marketing funnels, because when you write this type of copy, your clients can make money, and businesses grow, and expansion of the economy, and the flow of the energetic flow of money. Again, another topic, but I just want to bring it together for you about how this all works. So what do you want to create? What do you want your new story to be? Now here's the thing. When we talk about having patterns of negativity, that we have chosen the thought or the belief or the story that takes us away from, what does that sound like? What does that sound like? Well, it sounds kind of like this. You might say these things, you might think these things, you may even announce them to the world in Facebook posts and participating in groups and claiming it for yourself. And it's things like, why should I even try? I don't think this is going to work out. Nothing ever goes right for me. This is always what happens. This always happens. I feel so overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know if I can do this because I'm so overwhelmed. I don't think I can do this. Maybe it's just too late. Maybe it's just too late for me. I'm just not the right age. Everybody else is like, way younger than I am here, or I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't have a degree. These are the things that we can tell ourselves. These are just examples. Honestly, I don't even like saying them as an example, because I have done the work of this, and I continue to do the work of this because it's an ongoing journey. It's not a one-off. Okay, got it. Never a problem, right? It's a journey. Because remember all those 70,000, 90,000 subconscious thoughts and that deep, deep, deep programming? It isn't just like, oh, okay, I got it. Though it is really good news, because you can start changing it very, very fast. And I'll talk about that again in just a little minute here. But I really want you to get this, when you start noticing this, you can start turning this around really quickly. This can change for you very fast. I have so many students in my programs that say, I joined this copywriting program because I thought I was just going to learn how to write copy. But what's happening is I'm thinking things completely differently. I'm starting to have these breakthroughs. I'm starting to have these like illuminations, these revelations, these inspirations of something different. And they get super excited. They get super excited because the other thing that happens when we talk about energy and vibration, what does that all mean, right? When we start changing how we think and we choose our words and we're aware of them, into ones that serve us and take us towards instead of away from, that open up barriers and blockages and break them down and dissolve them and destroy them, instead of building them up bigger and bigger and heavier and higher and thicker and wider, all of those things. Instead of doing that wall getting like that, you start raising the energy. It's literally energy that you feel. You'll literally feel the difference. It's not just here. You feel it here. You feel it at your core. You feel it at the spirit and soul level. And so when we talk about energy, it isn't just woo, it really is not, because there's so many things going on around us that are not visible to the eye, right? But yet they're happening all around us. Our lights, our power, the chair we're sitting on, there's a lot more going on than we can see. And hey, look at it this way. You believe when you go to your lamp or your light switch on the wall, you believe that there will be light. You believe that there is an invisible force of energy that is at work that you can't see, You can feel it. Sometimes you might feel it not in a great way. You stick your finger in a light socket, but you can feel it and you believe it works, even if you don't understand exactly how electricity works, right? Our hearts are driven by electrical impulses. Our brains, these are things that go on with the tracings of EKGs and EMGs and all different kinds of testing. They're looking for something we can't see, but we can certainly feel at certain levels. And so there's a vibration to it, and there's a vibration in everything in the world. All the cellular structures of the world are, they're not just sitting there like, they're active. And so it's a true force that even if we can't see, we can feel. And maybe it's been a while since you've felt it, but think about when you're a kid even, and it was like Christmas is coming, or somebody just handed you this adorable fluffy puppy, and what kind of physical sensation did you have of, that oh wow, like a little jolt of lightning, that energy. And I can remember feeling like that that it was almost like taking your breath away, that sort of energetic lift. And you can create that energy, maybe differently now, and maybe because we get further away from the source of that as we get older, and so we have to kind of get reconnected to that. But you can still do that for yourself. And thinking differently is also how you raise your energy. Someone the other day said, "Oh," she said something like, "Miss Sunshine, you're always so cheerful," and I responded that I intentionally and consciously raise my energy. I raise that vibration by thinking a certain way, by believing a certain way, by allowing that to happen. And so you will literally feel that lift. Just like if you were to say, like just the state, that's why I said I don't even like giving the examples very much, because it's that, you can feel that lowering of the energy. You feel that sort of depressing weight of the words. And that is what's so incredible. And that's why I started the term authentic copy over a decade ago, even though it's popping up left and right now. I was talking about this more than 10 years ago, because the authenticity and the alignment, the responsibility we have as freelance copywriters must be used as a force for good, because that's how much power are in the words. That's how much power is in the messaging, right? And so that's why I teach this way of writing copy and creating a business for yourself with these, what I call the bookends of the science, the brain science of the success mindset, the intentional thinking, and the spirituality. And we're going to talk about that another day this week. I'm going to do another live about what I'm talking about when I talk about that spiritual connection. So, because this is what I see as these three essential elements for you to be successful. So, maybe right now, are you relating to any of those negative words? It could even be that you're driving across town and all the lights are turning red. Oh, this always happens to me. The lights are always turning red, right? And it seems like the more you think that, the more it's happening. The lights are turning red, right? It's your expectation. You're setting this expectation. Your focus is on the lights are turning red. Who knows? Maybe we imperceptibly change the speed we're driving at. There's something that starts to happen where we actually are creating that reality for ourselves as we go. I say this from personal experience because here in Tucson, we don't have like a big giant freeway system. It's called the Old Pueblo for a reason, because it's kind of preserved to not be like, freeways every which way. And so there's just one big loop around Tucson. But other than that, you got to drive through town. And that means lights when you're working your way through town. So I can honestly say I've had those thoughts, right? And I tell myself, think this differently. Start thinking to expect that things are going to work. And hang on one sec. Excuse me, I have to take a sip. Got my iced tea. I can feel that little starting, and I don't want to start coughing. Dry throat. So, okay, back to the words. So I want to make sure I cover all of this for you today. So here's the thing. The power of our words is such that anything you think, you say, you focus on, you put your attention on, is from the perspective of what will work or won't work, right? And so if you're thinking in this, let's just call it negative, okay? If you're thinking in the more negative way, if that's your habit of thought, you start focusing on the reasons why something's not going to work, the reason why this couldn't possibly work for me, the reason why, well, this works for her but not for me, this reason works for them but not for me, they must have something special going on, they made this work for them, but I know I can't do it. And so you start looking at things from your perceived flaws, your perceived lack, right? And your fears, and which really is anxiety, because fear is like real and present danger, like, excuse me, your hair's on fire, we need to point a garden hose at you, versus I'm just anxious that I won't be able to do this, right? There's a difference between fear and anxiety. Again, that's a big long story for another day probably, but we'll just call it fear for right now, because that's probably how you identify it a lot of the time. You don't say I'm approaching this because I'm out of a place of anxiety versus my strength. You probably just be, I'm afraid this is going to happen. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid I'll invest and I'll never see the return on that investment. I'm afraid that I won't be able to figure this out. These are the things, our perceived flaws. So it really is anything you are saying in your head or out loud that limits your potential and assumes you will fail. When you come at it from that place of assuming you will fail, that you're focusing on your attention on what you have identified as the perceived problem or reason why you can't do XYZ, whatever the thing is. I don't care if it's baking chocolate chip cookies or writing great copy or starting your online business or whatever it might be, that we have these things that we tell ourselves, well, there's a perceived problem. When you allow yourself to be on that runaway train of the negative messaging, the negative words, this is actually a big deal. It's a very big deal in your life. It's actually dangerous because it keeps you back. It keeps you from rising to your full potential. It keeps you from actually embracing that uniqueness that you've been born with, gifted with, and developed, the other aspects of yourself that you've developed all through your life. It keeps you from fully embracing that and integrating all of that into what you do now, what you're doing now. And it sets you up to fail because you're already thinking it. You're already expecting it. It's already where your focus is. It's maybe stopping you from taking a next step. Or you bail out. You bail out. You start and you stop. You pull back. I've had more instances than you might ever imagine of over the years of people that I've worked with, some recent, some further back, where everything was aligning. The stars were aligning for them to start creating their online business, to get paid well for what they were doing. There have been times where I've practically delivered a referral on a silver platter and have already paved the way. I remember one in particular, I knew that they were ready to pay this individual a very robust amount of money. It was somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 for a project, right? And it was all ready to go. It was literally like, here, this is for you, and they are ready to do this. Do you know what that person did? Can you guess? Can you guess? If you guess that they quit, you'd be right. They stopped. They totally stopped. They quit. Rather than actually step up and believe that they were capable of doing this thing, that I believed in them more than they did at this moment, right? To the point where I had prepared the way, and they quit. They quit. And so that's why I say this is dangerous, because, if you're looking for a way to, maybe you're looking for a new career, or you need to increase the revenue or the money coming into your home, to be able to take care of your family, that you need to be there for your family. You need something. I was watching the news the other night, and there were people crying because they're having such a hard time working remotely for the job and still taking care of their children who are home right now, and they're having to be the teacher, the worker, the everything, the mom, and because a business place had an expectation of how they were supposed to do their work. And I just thought, again, how grateful I am for freelance copywriting, because when you're in this world, you get to call the shots. You decide when you're available. You decide when you're going to have that conversation. You decide your fee. You decide how you're going to work with your client. You get to set up your business from a perimeter of power of what works for you, instead of someone else saying, we don't like that you're a mom because you're working from home now for our ABC company, and so your children need to completely disappear. Could you sedate them? It almost sounds like that for what some people are going through right now. And so being able to set yourself up for success in another way, instead of depending on someone else's opinion of you, expectation of you, and dictating to you what you're going to do, is a powerful thing. And so setting up the belief system for yourself creating a new way of thinking about what's possible for yourself opens up so many doorways. And it's like there's this momentum. It's like the wheels start turning and you build that momentum because you start creating different outcomes. You are able to take charge of outcomes that you're creating for yourself. And when things do happen, things get thrown in your path. I'm not saying everything's all, unicorns and rainbows, that we all have things that happen. We all have things we have to deal with, right? But it allows you, it gives you, equips you with the mental stamina and strength and muscle to start thinking things differently and start changing the outcomes and start finding your way through that in a way that serves you instead of stops you or derails you even. So what I really want you to get is you can change so much about your life by learning to think some of these things differently. All things, as many things as you're aware of. It's a decision. And so like I was saying, our words are super powerful. And that's why it's so important that we are intentional with them. We are intentional. We understand the power of them, not only for those we serve and what we do as freelance copywriters, but we understand the power of them from the sense of how they are affecting us, how they are, what we are creating. We're like the co-creators of our life. So some things to ask you. When I think things this way, whatever it is you're thinking, does it take me towards what I want, what I say I want, what I want to achieve, or does it take me away? And you can identify that for yourself. Is this a towards or away kind of moment, right? Because here's the really, really fascinating thing. Whatever way you decide to think it, you choose to think it, you will be right. You will prove yourself right. Either way. Either way. You get that? You're going to prove yourself right either way. And why? Ask yourself this. And I know I have felt like this before, so that's why I bring this up. Maybe you have too. Why do we hang on so tightly to proving ourselves right, even when it's something that's harmful to us, even when it's something that keeps us mired down in old thinking, old resentments, old beliefs about ourselves, failures from the past, mistakes we've made? Why is it that we're so invested in them that we will sort of fight tooth and nail, verbally at any rate, to hang on and say, no, I'm right. This is not going to work out. No, I'm totally right about this. Because you're already believing. When you do that, it's almost like we have this sort of righteous indignation. It's like when we hold on to wrongs or something someone said to us or something that's happened to us in the past, and we are going to hang on to it. God darn it, we're going to hold on with both hands and wrestle with that, even if it's destroying relationships, even if it's, and sometimes relationships sometimes you have to separate yourself from. I'm not saying every relationship is one that you should stay in, but you know the difference. It's sort of like that resentment. Is that like you're stabbing yourself in the in the leg and expecting somebody else to feel the pain, right? And so what I see a lot of times with people that are learning the online business or are coming into the freelance copywriting world is that they kind of want to hang on to the old story about how overwhelmed, how confused, how, all of those things. And so when you're doing that, you're already believing more in your ability to fail than you are in your ability to not fail. See, you're believing more in your ability to fail rather than your ability to not fail. In other words, to succeed, right? And that we deserve to be right about the wrong things. It's like you're going to prove to the world that you will fail and you will be right. Okay, so there's just all these shifts that have to happen in your heart and your spirit, in these internal shifts. It's an inside job. This happens on the inside. It's an inside out thing because nobody else can do this for you. Nobody can do this for you. You have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to say, I am open to receiving. I'm open to letting go of this old story that I've been carrying around with me like my best friend for the last million years, however old we are. That this has just been my identity. This is the story I tell over and over again. And sometimes I hear people telling the story of a difficult place in their life, like very, very intensely, very repeatedly for a really long time, like decades. when I started sharing what happened to me in my 40s, when I became homeless, when we were nearly murdered and were stalked for several years, I didn't even tell that story at all until the last few years, because I realized that it was, it, I could do it from a place of strength, right? And that I chose not to look at that story for a really long time. And also, I did not want it to be an identifier of who I am in that sense. Okay. And so I had already chosen long ago. I chose that I was going to go a different path with this. I was going to make it make sense, make something positive come from all of that, and not take on an identity of, of failure and not even a survivor. Even that, I didn't want to identify. I want to be the thriver. It's not a survival thing, it's a moving past thing. And so I chose that early on, that that's what I would do. And so I barely ever talked about it. Hardly anybody knew about it. But then it got to the point where I thought there's a reason to start sharing that to a certain point. Because if it inspires someone, if someone realizes, hey, if she can do it, so can I. It was more about that. If I can do it, so can you. Because I didn't have any special anythings, on my own from 17, nobody ever teaching me, not having a mentor, not having people in my life that were like, we believe in you. I had to figure out how to believe in myself, right? And so that's why, that's how now it all gets woven into what I do, because I know how life-changing all of this is when you put it all together this way. Okay? Making sense? I hope so. So maybe now you're thinking, okay, I get it, but how do I begin changing it? So let me give you some steps. So how you begin changing this way of thinking, when you start saying, okay, I'm going to muscle up my intentional thinking, and I'm going to change how I'm thinking some of these stories, because I know they're stopping me. You probably get a sense in your gut, we'll call it your gut, because really these aspects, and this is where we'll go into the spiritual dimension in a few days, because it really comes from more like in your heart zone than here, right? That there's a way these two pieces come together and create this different way you're running your business and you're seeing your life and what kind of results you're getting, all of that. But right now you might be sensing it more from here down, right? Not from here. And so you're becoming aware that maybe that light bulb's starting to go off. That I had a Zoom call I did the other day that it was like, one of the things I was sharing on that is that most people go through life asleep, right? That we just are on kind of like autopilot, like I do this, I go to work, I've had this job, this is what I do, this is what everybody expects of me, this is all I expect for myself, and there's just sort of a numbing out. And right now, could be easy to numb out in a lot of ways. And so instead, when you start waking up, as we awaken to what's really possible and where we can put our focus, just that little tiny like tap, 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 hey, you're waking up. And so if you're starting to become aware that this is an issue for you, so here's some steps. I'm going to give you a couple of steps. You're going to notice what you're saying to yourself. Start noticing it. Notice what comes out of your mouth. What are you actually saying? And because that you've just sort of automatically, boom, reflexive, that's what I say in this situation. Hardly even have to think about it. I just say it because it's this belief that I'm hanging on to. What are you saying to yourself? What are you saying aloud? What are you announcing to the world with your Facebook posts, with your comments inside Facebook groups, with programs that you're in, where it's kind of like, are you the one that's always kind of going, I can't do it, this kind of thing? Or are you saying, hey, I'm going to take some responsibility here of, I could use some help with this, or can someone point me in the right direction, or I need to Google this and find, just taking responsibility. But how often do you hear yourself saying something that is definitely in the negative side of things? Like, I can't do this, I don't know that it's too late. I'm never going to be able to achieve this, or I can't really start my own business. That's not going to, I can't give up my security, that security, right? Oh boy, that's another big phantom, right? So that's the thing you're telling yourself is your truth, that this job, or this thing that's like the soul-sucking job you've been doing for a couple of decades, or this thing you just keep grinding harder, but you're not really getting ahead, and that's a whole money story that will, again, another day. But when you claim those things as your truth, right, your belief, then how much time you spend actually saying that. You know how it is. Things always work out like this. Or yeah, I'll tell you one of the things I've caught myself on, especially in 2020, saying, have you found yourself ever saying, well, it can't get much worse than this? You know? Have you found yourself saying that? Or what else could possibly go wrong? You know, that kind of statement, that's an easy one to do right now. And so when I hear myself saying that, this is the next step. Recalibrate. Recalibrate. Notice when you take that kind of fallback position to that negative way that you may have said about things forever. You may have said those things when you were in your 20s at a job, and now you're saying them when you're in your 40s or your 50s or whatever, wherever you're at in life, right? That you're still saying them. You're still saying them and still getting these other outcomes. So recalibrate every time you catch yourself. And again, you can have lots of thoughts that you're not even aware of, but the ones that kind of pop out that you catch yourself on, and you find yourself sharing them or saying them or looking for, this is the other thing, it just sort of came to mind as I'm saying it. You're looking for confirmation from other people to allow you to keep thinking that way. You're looking for other people to go, yeah, I feel that way too. Yeah, you know, and they start confirming and agreeing with what you are stating, that you somewhere in here, somewhere you know, this is one of those negative things. This is one of those old stories. This is one of my habits. Habits, right? This isn't to say that this isn't a judgment or a moral judgment. These are things that have been embedded deeply in our brains our whole entire life. And so that waking up and starting to be aware and realizing that maybe sometimes you're doing that because there's some kind of weird comfort in other people gathering around that are all going to say the same thing with you. The negative stuff, not the positive, not the uplifting, not the energy changing, vibrational increasing stuff that you might be saying out loud in a group. And this is why you need to choose who you hang out with, because if you're only going to hang out with the people that are going to be there, yep, I'm with you all the way on that negative story you're telling yourself. That is definitely true, that negative story you're telling yourself. And that's why sometimes when people come into my programs and they start claiming and owning the fact that they're a freelance copywriter, sometimes you don't tell your family or those near and dear or your friends, because they're the ones that are going to go, really? That's going to be very difficult. Are you sure? That sounds really hard. These are tough times. You know, that messaging can just really mess you up, because you're listening to their truths and absorbing them as your own, or they're triggering an old story you have that you're going, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that one, right? And so just being aware, okay? And so every time you catch yourself saying or thinking things that like are shaming to yourself, that are toxically negative, that are harmful to your potential, that are going to stop you from achieving what you truly say you want, which is this increase in life and more security, be able to make more money, be healthier, whatever the thing is, stop it. That's pretty lofty thinking right there, but stop it. When you do that, just be aware, like Sharon Moonstruck. Stop it. Snap out of it. just catch yourself and choose right then to restate it immediately. Okay, so we've got notice it, be aware. When you catch yourself, recalibrate. Start thinking, well, how can I change that thought? And then restate it immediately. Turn it into, how can you say it in a different way? How can you approach it from a different way that you're going to move that negative outcome story, the one that you're going to say to yourself, oh, hey, wait, I choose not to create that as my reality. I choose to think it this way. And I found myself lately saying that sometimes, where I'll start to say something, and what happens is you start catching yourself before you even finish the thought. You'll start catching yourself faster, where you go, oh, wait, literally like, oh, hey, wait, just give it a rest for a minute. I'm going to say it this way instead. Now, maybe that sounds like too simple, but I'm telling you how powerful this is. That you literally say to yourself, wait, that's not me. I'm smarter than that. I'm good at figuring things out. I have a plan. I've always been able to work through things. Whatever the thing is that you can change it to immediately, start saying that to yourself. Say this, I choose to think this differently. right here. I just realized I was thinking that. I choose to think it differently, and I choose to think it differently right now. Start doing that kind of recalibrating and restating for yourself. And if you have trouble believing yourself, because this is another issue that comes up, well, yeah, I could say this stuff all day long, but the other part of my brain's going, oh, yeah, right, sure, right, rolling your eyes, in imagining that kind of reaction, right? So when you have trouble believing yourself. I actually wrote out a few statements for you to share with you today. So you can re-listen to this, write some of these down, okay? Come back to this and listen to it again and say, okay, I'm gonna borrow this from Tina, because I will hold you as powerful until you start to see the shift in yourself. So here's some things that you can tell yourself when you're doubting that this will actually work for you. Ever since I started thinking differently, I've noticed something shifting. So it doesn't have to be like, I've noticed that $1 million is suddenly appearing. It's not like that. But you're noticing these shifts because you will notice something shifting. Ever since I started noticing my words, I've noticed something shifting. So even the act of awareness, ever since I've become more aware of when I do this, I've noticed something shifting. That this is the beginning of the shift, is being aware, noticing, acknowledging, right? And you can then add on, I am open to this working for me. So you can be open to receiving. I am open to change. I am open to this working. You're already telling your brain, you're giving your brain the message, I am open to this. I'm open to absorbing this. I'm open to changing my thoughts. I'm excited. And then something you're excited about. I'm excited about seeing what's happening when I think differently. I'm excited about it. And get excited about it. When you say this to yourself, you will start to get excited about it. Your brain will telling you you're excited about seeing what happens when you think differently. Think about this really fun experiment, this really fun energy experiment that you're going to do, that you're going to start noticing how things are shifting. You may notice, oh, wow, I feel better when I think it like that. That's a shift. That's a differently, right? I notice this energetic lift, right? I love feeling like this. I love feeling like this. I love feeling like this kind of expectation of great stuff. I love feeling like I have control over changing what happens with my life. I love feeling like I have something really fun to think about. I love thinking it differently. I deserve to feel like this. I deserve to feel like this. I'm excited about feeling like this. See, when you even say these words to yourself, it's different than a mantra. This is different. This is just like a reprogramming of your brain, of affirmation of what works for you, and that's going to become the way you think. It's becoming the way you think. It's becoming the way you think. This is becoming the way I think. You could say that one. This is becoming the way I think. Ever since I started noticing this, this is becoming the way I think. I've noticed it, and just like acknowledge it. Because this is the science part now. This isn't just like, fairy dust sprinkles and we all feel better for 5 minutes, right? There's a science to this. There's an actual science to this. Because the most important chemical process to rewiring your brain, we're just going to call it that, is repetition. It's repetition. Did I say it's repetition? Your brain is designed this way to pay attention to the messages that are stored the most. Okay, this is a very simplified way of saying this, but we don't all have to have like on white lab coats and be carrying clipboards to get this, right? That this is just the way your brain works. Your brain is designed this way to pay attention and store the messages repeated the most often. Maybe this also, I just had this thought while I'm saying it, that when you read about, for example, people that have been in very difficult scenarios, that have been imprisoned, falsely imprisoned, that have been prisoners of war, that have been in circumstances that just seem like impossible, right, to get through. And a lot of times those people tell the stories of how they started thinking, what they chose to think about their circumstances, what they chose to think differently to strengthen them and carry them through. And so, that's just another example of what makes the difference. What makes the difference? And mindset, that really strong, powerful intention that no matter what, that people have held on to, that have taken them through very, very difficult times. Now, this repetition thing, though, here's the simplest explanation of it. This is why, I don't have one sitting here, unfortunately, but this is why we can take a spoon or a fork and not go, and that we can actually just automatically get the food to our mouth with our implement, right? This is how the baby learns to not just grab their oatmeal and put their bowl on top of their head, but pretty soon they get the spoon and they're kind of getting there, and then pretty soon they're doing it, right? Because of the repetition. It's how your brain is made. It's how you're wired. And so the repetition makes it so we walk around, or however we navigate, however that may be, but we do it without having to think every single second. For most of us, I mean, but this is also the patterning of brain injuries and things like that, where the repetition of repatterning teaches people to relearn how to do some of these things, or after a stroke, this kind of stuff. This is where the brain science comes in, and things that we take for granted of how we can speak or how we breathe or our heart beating, that we're not sitting here saying beat, 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 all through the day. It's happening automatically because our whole system is wired for that without thinking about it. And that's something to be very thankful for. The repetition is what forms new neural connections. That's what it literally starts rewiring your brain. That's what I was talking about, the trenches. Like we have these, I picture like these trenches that, you're walking around, maybe you're like in this deep, you're like looking out over the top of that old story. This is the path I'm always on. This is the path I'm always on. This is the path like that. And instead it's like, I'm going to make a new trench. I'm going to make a new trench. I'm going to make a new one. This one's a lot nicer. I like this one better. I'm going to start walking in this one. This is a very fanciful, imaginary way of picturing this, but I kind of picture it like that. That this is now you're making these new pathways. You can go through the garden now. You don't have to stay stuck in that in a rut. Maybe that's where the term comes from. I'm stuck in a rut. You don't have to stay stuck in that brain rut of the old way of thinking. So repetition is key. Say it, feel it, express it differently. If you find that you're constantly saying these things in a negative way, catch yourself on it and say, I think right now, even if you can only do this for a few minutes a day, even if it seems like, okay, yeah, but after a while I just kind of get tired, right? So, but even if you're just doing it and believing it for 5 or 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, that repetition every single day of really reinforcing this, it will change. It will change what I've seen this so many times in my programs of people that were charging $50 for a page of copy and now they're charging $500. They're still on the journey. They're still on that journey of how they're going to raise their fees, what their expectation is about the value that they bring to something and what they're able to do. And so these are all other kinds of stories. Don't have time to go into all of those today. This is something I teach in my program in the Accelerated Entrepreneur, of how we go more deeply into this change, this pattern of change, and it's how you increase. It's like I've told the story of Pam, that went from $750 for her project to the next day it was $8,000 overnight. All that changed was what she said aloud and what she believed was possible for herself. She chose to believe in that possibility rather than the one that said, no one's going to pay you that. You can't do that. You can't get paid like that in advance. You know how many people have said that to me? You can't get paid in advance. Really? Gosh, how is it that I've been doing that since 2004? How is it that that's always how I've run my business? How is it that I've built that perimeter of power, my protocols in my business? You know how it happened? I believed it was possible. I believed it was possible, not that I couldn't do it. I believed it was possible. My husband and I were talking yesterday about some of the different things in our journey in life together. And we just had our 25th anniversary in August. And he was reminding me of the times I've said, oh no, this is what's going to happen. I believe this is possible. And he was saying, where do you think you got that? How do you think you did that? And it's like, I think it was given to me. I think it was divinely guided. I think that wisdom was given to me and that I believed it. I believed it. So a couple little examples on the various properties we've ever owned since we've been together, and we built our life back up from nothing when we had nothing. When I first met my husband, he was wearing shoes made out of plastic from Walmart. Okay, I'm not kidding. That we really didn't have anything when we first got together. Gradually, it became that I believed that we could buy some property, because when I was growing up, it was like my folks had a very nice home in California. Things happened with my father's work. They started not having anything, right? So my childhood was spent in lack and scarcity. lights being turned off by the power company, cars towed out of the driveway, bill collectors hammering on the door when that was still allowed to happen, and us, shh, shh, until they went away, that kind of stuff, and many other things. But I grew up with that lack mentality, right? And so for a long time, I thought it was going to be just about impossible to ever own a home. That was something that was something I wanted, but I just thought, I don't even know how that can happen. But what started to change was my belief in what was possible. So fast forward, Ron and I have had a number of different properties, and every single time we have sold one, we've done it ourselves. We've never used a realtor to sell a house in the last 25 years. Always have sold it ourselves. Always for more than any realtor told us. We might have someone come, because maybe we'd go through, maybe we should get a realtor this time, and have them come and look and give us what they thought and all that. Every single time I have personally gone, yeah, I don't agree with that. I think we can do better than that. Every single time we've sold it for more than any realtor ever told us we could sell it for. We've sold them all for cash every time. And that's why we could say, this is the price, take it or leave it, right? We've sold them quickly, we've sold them for cash, and we've sold them without a realtor, and always for more than a realtor told us. That is a consistent pattern. I think it's been 4 or 5 different properties, right? And so what made the difference was that even more than my husband, a lot of the time, I believed it was possible. I believed it was possible. I chose to believe it was possible. My brain said it's possible. I focused on it's possible. And every single time we sold it very quickly, usually to the first or second person that looked at the house. This is what happened. Same thing happened during the recession of 2008. I have now shared the story that I kind of didn't realize some of this until afterwards. But what really was happening is I chose not to focus on the news, not to focus on what was happening as far as a recession, not to focus on that. I chose to focus on, I have clients. These are my fees. I get paid in advance. I am very busy. These clients need me, and it's changing their lives and their business, because now more than ever, they need really great marketing, and that starts with their copy. Their freelance copywriter, me, was writing that copy for them, and so they were having success, and so was I. And because I did not focus, I believed that I could do this. And you know where we were living? We were living in central Mexico. We weren't even living in the United States, because we had chosen to have an experience of living in central Mexico, in San Miguel de Allende. And it was something we'd really wanted to do. And so I believed we could do it. I believed we should do it. And so we did. And I was doing a lot of that work I was doing from there, remotely, and having huge, huge months just writing sales letters, right? For clients. I didn't have a program. I didn't have anything else like that. I did do some marketing intensives where people actually flew to meet me in Mexico from the United States, business people, entrepreneurs, to have a very expensive marketing intensive with me, because I believed in the value I was giving them. So this all comes back to what you believe is possible for you. Because when you spend some time now every day on doing this, believing what's possible for you, come back and watch this again. Listen to it again. Listen to uplifting messages. I have a free podcast called The Tina Loren Show. It's on iTunes. So all the videos and things they do are also sent out as podcasts. So you can just listen. And you can listen from one of these, right? You don't need any special software when you listen to a podcast. And so again, this is a brain science thing, because the way your brain is constructed, that neuroplasticity of your brain, is your brain will listen even while you're doing other things. And so here's the beauty of podcasts, because you don't have to sit at the computer and watch the video if you don't want to. You can put on your earbuds. You can be working. I have people in my programs that are doing sort of manual work right now. They're just getting started in their copywriting journey, and one of them said I was cleaning kennels, right, for animals, and one of her jobs, and she was listening to one of my podcasts, and she said she had these insights that just came through, oh my gosh, I know what niche I'm going to write for. Oh my gosh, I know what I'm going to do with my business. And it was while she was scrubbing, doing whatever she was doing with cleaning the kennel. And that's because your brain is wired to work like that your subconscious is taking it in. You're not consciously arguing with it. Your brain is taking it in because you're physically engaged in another activity. It allows your brain to take it in, in a different, more effective way. And so that's pretty magical all by itself. That your brain will listen whether or not you're consciously listening or not. And so you could be like, oh, I'm busy, I've got to clean this, or I'm doing this, but the words are kind of just going in there, and your brain, this one part of your brain is listening, even though you consciously are not. And so it's embedding because your brain is busy wiring it in. Your brain is busy wiring it in. Isn't this amazing what your brain can do for you? It's truly amazing. And so even in our limited way, if we can tap into that power and let it do its job for us in a way that serves us, in the most positive way that serves us. Because remember, your brain believes what it is told the most. Your brain believes what it is told the most. Got that? And so if you're spending most of your time putting in the old stuff, the old stories, dusting them off and saying, I'm just going to keep on, that's what your brain believes. That's what becomes your belief and your truth. The key to failure is the repetition of a belief in failure. Doesn't that sound simple? The key to failure is the repetition of a belief in failure. And so that's what you're unlocking over and over again. If you're choosing to think it in that way, the deep part of your brain, there is nothing called truth. There's no little worker sitting in your brain going, okay, that one's true. Oh, nope, that one's not. Okay, we're sorting it out for you here. This is what's true and this is what's not. That's not happening. Your brain is believing what is told the most often, because your brain has incredible capacity to store the messaging and play it back in the most, when it plays back, you know what that replay button is? The ones that are most predominant, the loudest ones, so to speak. That's the ones that rise to the top in your own brain as truth or fact, whether or not they're actually true. So it can rise to the top that you're never going to succeed, whether or not that's actually true, and it's not, but it will become your truth if that's the predominant thought. That's the predominant thought. That's the predominant thought. Get it? Please tell me you're getting this. So what you believe is not a measure of how right or correct it is. That's why we have different views about politics. That's why we have different religions, all of these things. It's not, your brain isn't measuring whether it's true or correct. It's the result of the programs you have embedded in your brain that support the belief. So you are consciously and unconsciously creating that belief for yourself. The strongest messages win. That's about as heavy duty of science as you need to understand. The strongest messages win. The strongest messages win. The strongest messages win when it comes to your brain. So here's what's really exciting. What's super exciting is that you can change it. You can change it because our brains are built that way. They are built that way. And the other thing is that you can change it quickly. Even though it's been years of this programming, you can start the new programming right now today, and you can start seeing and feeling the effects of that very, very quickly, like in weeks, not years. Literally that fast. You can start seeing the difference, feeling the difference, experiencing the difference, creating the difference by choosing to think things differently. So, what am I going to tell you? Spend time flexing your mindset muscle. You don't have to buy a treadmill. You don't have to buy any equipment. You don't have to change your clothes. You don't have to say, somehow I got to carve out an hour of the day for this other thing, or that the weather is affecting it, or anything, right? You can flex that mindset muscle all through the day, right where you are, right this very minute. So that's what I hope that you're getting from this today, is that. And this is something that's very much a part of my programs, where I teach copywriting and marketing strategy. And so I want you to understand that this can be part of that journey, that when you're starting an online business, if you choose to be a freelance copywriter, or you want to be able to write copy for funnels, and you want to get those high ticket fees, that this all works together. It's not just, here's how you write your headline, here's how you write an email. I could teach that all day long, but if you don't get this part dialed in, if you don't get this part, if you don't embrace this part, it could be for nothing, honestly, because this is the differentiator that I see over and over again between the students that I work with and the clients that I work with that move forward and have success, and the ones that stay stuck. that there's something else going on. I can't crawl into your head with you. I can get this close, and I can get this close, but I can't crawl in there with you, right? And so this is something you have to do for yourself, and you have to make a commitment to. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this, I am doing a free workshop later this week. It's how to get high-ticket copywriting clients and with those higher fees, even if nobody's ever heard of you. But the best part of all is, and when you do that, you also transform and transcend, both in your life and those you serve. I'm going to be talking all about that this week on a free training. So the training is free. There is a little application because I just want to make sure it's a good fit, because sometimes the application comes with so much of the old story that that's all there is, that there isn't anything there. It's just not going to be a good fit yet, right? Because there's still some stuff that has to happen there. But I want it to be a really positive experience for you, and I want to spend time with those that are ready for that next step, because they're preparing the way, right? And so there is a little short application, not very long, a couple of questions and a little bit of contact information. So if you'd like to apply for my free training, I'm going to put the link here after I'm done talking. And this is part 2 of the 3-part series. The third part is going to be about the spirituality aspect of how does that fit into all of this. I'm not talking about church. I'm not talking about a religion. I'm talking about connecting to that deeper source, something outside of ourselves. If that's not something that you believe in, you might not be interested in this, but this is something that I believe is a very, very essential core to your business as well. It's been something that's guided me. It's what's brought me to this level in my business and in my life. And I think it can do that for you too. I see it changing lives all the time in my programs. So that's what I have for you today. Oh my gosh, went over an hour. I was thinking this would be a little bit shorter than this, but this is just something that I see as so incredibly important, so incredibly important. And so if you'd like to join me on Thursday, I'm going to put the link here, right? And I'm going to come back and take a look at your comments too. I really wanted to stay focused. I very much appreciate you being here today. I wanted to stay super focused on this because I knew it was going to take some time to go through this process. And so it's like, stay right on it today for you. But I'll be back and check on your comments, answer any questions you might have. Thanks so much for being here today. And I'll be doing this again. I'm doing lives every day, but I'll be doing a really good training again on just a couple more days. So stay tuned for that one as well. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and stay aware of how you're thinking. Stay aware of how you're thinking and choose to think it differently. If it doesn't serve you, if it doesn't take you towards what you want to achieve in life and the kind of life you really want, choose to think it differently. And I'll talk to you again soon.